Hello, and welcome to today's webcast, Power BI, brought to you by your Insight Microsoft commercial team. My name is Blair Loveland. I am your Microsoft Readiness Specialist at Insight, and I will be your moderator for today. Before we begin, I do want to cover a few housekeeping items. This webcast is designed to be interactive between you and the presenters. The webcast console you are looking at can be completely customized. You can resize or move any of the windows that you have open. If you have any questions during the webcast, you can click on the Q&A widget at the bottom and submit your question. All questions from this webcast will be captured, and there will be a Q&A during the last few minutes of the presentation. If you are experiencing any technical difficulties, please visit the webcast help guide by clicking on the question mark icon below the presentation window. This guide helps cover some common technical issues. I would now like to turn this presentation over to our presenters, Corey Mills and Albert Koba. Guys, the floor is yours.
Hey, thanks, Blair. Thanks, everyone, and pleasure to see you guys, or be here for you guys to see me. Let me go ahead and kick off my screen share. Yeah. All right. I think we've gone through the introductions, and you have Albert and myself on the call, and we're here to kind of walk you through Power BI. All right, so I've got a couple of areas here. We kind of broke it down in 10, 25, 10-minute segments, and we've gone through this a couple of times, and we're running short on time, so I'm going to try to go through this as semi-quickly as possible. All right, so again, what is Power BI, and how do you guys get started? We're going to cover all of that, and we'll try to do a live demo, semi-live. I kind of recorded it, so it kind of kept me on point. And then towards the end, we have what we call these implementation strategies, right? How do you get to modern BI, right? And then, of course, there's our plug. How can we help? So again, I'm with Insight, and hopefully it won't come off as too salesy. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into it. What is Power BI? Okay, so we kind of broke it up into a couple segments here. Why Power BI? What the components are for Power BI? And some of the key terminology that you'll hear us say, and you'll probably hear a lot from other people too as well. Okay? All right.
Hey,
so
sorry, man. You got a screen share.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Thought it was on screen share. Oh, there was one more step. Okay, snap. Let's start over. Okay. Sorry for that, guys. Okay. Are we good now?
Yeah, we're
Albert?
good.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we're good.
Sorry. Yeah, so this makes more sense now. We have our 4 components here, and we're going to go through this a little bit faster now. And this side here, we kind of put a plug towards, what the Gartner Magic Quadrant is saying about Tableau and Microsoft. Again, those guys, they're leading the way in this area. I've done a little bit of work with ClickView and MicroStrategy, and Forrester also kind of hints towards the same thing, with Microsoft leading the way. And so, again, you're in good hands using Microsoft's suite of tools and Microsoft Power BI for your needs. Right? That's what it says. One little tidbit I like to kind of throw out there is, I'm out here in Seattle, and I've actually worked at Tableau, as a project manager, and it was interesting to see Salesforce buy up Tableau. So now I'm wondering, how does that work now with the next, evaluation? Do they put Salesforce and Tableau together, and then they move up further on that leaderboard? We'll see. Okay. Let's go through this. All right, so Power BI. I like this slide because it kind of, showcases there are more components than these right here, but the 2 that we're going to show primarily is the Power BI desktop and the Power BI service, okay? And I think it's fair to kind of call out that, Power BI is part of the Power Platform, and these are the new icons. So if you were part of that Microsoft Ignite, you heard them push a lot about, hey, don't use the old icons, use the new ones. So we've gone through and tried to replace as many of those as possible. But again, the thing you want to take away from here is we have Power Platform and all of its wonderful, Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents. All of those things help you get to where you need, especially when you want to try to automate or implement BI for your organization. And what we're going to be focusing on is Power BI, and the two primary components we'll see in the next two slides is Power BI Desktop and Power BI Service. Okay? All right, let's go on. So Power BI Desktop. This is your typical welcome screen whenever you open up Power BI, and I'll show you guys this too during the live demo. And it is worth noting, you know, every time you come in here, it's constantly telling you, hey, here's what's new, the forums. Definitely join the forums and the blog posts if you haven't already. And I even go through the tutorials just to kind of see what's latest and greatest. The big thing here in bold here is the ongoing enhancements. I remember back in the day, it used to be Power View for Excel, and I hated that thing. And then when Power BI came out, I was like, come on, we have Tableau, why would you do this? But now I'm firmly in Power BI camp. So I used to think that I was tool agnostic, but now I'm pretty much Power BI all the way. Let's see here, is there anything else I need to call out? Yeah, there's one more thing. So Power BI Desktop, and we'll go through this in more detail, it is one of the core components, and it is free, okay? So this is something that, you know, any user or anyone can go out there, and it's not like by trial version or anything else. You actually download it, install it on your machine, and you can go through and fire, transform, distribute, well, not technically distribute, but you can send it via email, your Power BI desktop file, right? And we'll go through that as part of the demo as well. The other component is the Power BI service, okay? And the Power BI service, you know, if you think of the two separately, Power BI Desktop helps you do the development and, you know, building out kind of reports. Your report developer, even your business users could use it. It's like using Excel. You want to be able to help visualize your data. Well, Power BI Service will take all the work you did in Power BI Desktop and get you into the cloud. And that's where you're going to be able to leverage all the cool capabilities, such as the hosted, it's all in Azure. You can access it from any browser, but the catch here is that you have to pay for this service, right? And that's what they call the Power BI Pro license, right? It's an individual user license that allows you to access and utilize the Power BI service, okay? And all of its wonderful things. So now if you, and I'll go through here in a minute here, but you can actually download both Power BI Desktop for free and then Power BI Service as a trial for 60 days. So that's plenty of time to kind of get you going and try to build up that adoption and gain that support if you really want to go in there. And Insight can help with that too as well. All right. So let's go on to the next one here. Okay. The cost, the money issue. So like I said before, Power BI Desktop is free, but the service, if you want to get it into the cloud, you have to pay for it through this Power BI Pro option, okay? And yes, it's $10 a month per person, okay? Now, I also kind of plugged in here the premium capacity as well. And the thing with that, and we're not going to go into too much in this webinar, is that both Power BI Pro and Power BI Premium, they work together. But Power BI Pro can live without Power BI Premium. Power BI Premium cannot live without Power BI Pro. So think of it this way, and you could go ahead and use Power BI Pro to disseminate it to the world or to the people who have Power BI Pro licenses, and you can do a lot with that. But inevitably, you're going to hit that upper ceiling where you're going to want to reach the 500 plus users, and you're not going to want to pay 500 different licenses for all those users. And so what a lot of our customers or clients will do is they'll go ahead and purchase a P1 node and get that premium capacity added onto their license. Okay. All right. So I think that was that for that first part of the slide. How are we looking, Albert? With that snapping in the beginning, looking good?
We're looking far, Corey. Looking good.
All right, cool. All right. So I am going to go ahead and jump into the next segment, and I'm just going to have to put a warning out there. This is the segment that was the hardest one to kind of do. And so we've done a couple of riffs on this, and we realized, you know what, it's just better to just kind of do a recording on a recording. So I'll show you what I mean here in a second. So this next section, this is where we're going to, the tires hit the road kind of thing. we're going to go ahead and show you how you can download Power BI Desktop and provide you some links to Power BI Pro, so you can go ahead and get your license going. If you're doing trial, that's fine too. And we'll go ahead and show you guys an example of how we acquired data, transformed it using Power BI Desktop, and then went ahead and distributed it using the Power BI service. All right, and we're going to try to do this all roughly 25 minutes. Okay. Okay. So, oh yeah, and then one little plug here is that at the end of all of that, hopefully we'll be able to show you some Power BI quick insights, some of the cool capabilities that come out with using the tool just out of the box. No heavy lifting in that sense. All right? Okay. Let's go and go. So again, here is a reference, and I believe towards the end of this webinar, you guys will get an email that will kind of list all the references and links that we refer to during this webinar. And feel free to go ahead and click through those. And then obviously we'll have the deck available to you as well, but you'll have to kind of come to the Insight portal. All right, nothing here that I haven't seen. Oh, one last thing. On the Power BI Desktop, there's a couple of options to download this through the app. I generally like to go to this site and actually download it, and you can't see it here, but I have this advanced download option highlighted. It's just, I don't know, I like downloading it from there. It's easier than going through the App Store. Sometimes I get a snafu depending on what web browser I'm using. So take that into consideration. All right, let's jump into it. Okay, so I have a call out here, a shout out towards synthetic health data that we're going to be using. So a colleague of mine, he told me, hey, go ahead and go out to GitHub and pull some of this mocked up data. So again, we're going to do a demo on healthcare. All right. And it's not COVID. I'm not going to go into that. I think we've seen a lot of that already. But it's definitely a place where, you can join this group. I can even click on them right here. And, they have a nice little blurb about how they're all about helping others to get it out there, right? And the goal here, I believe, is, hey, we're going to go ahead and generate all this dummied up data and help you guys try to build something out of this, such that when you do use it on real data, you can kind of come up with the same kind of insights. Maybe you guys will come up with something better that we've seen before. So definitely look into joining this community. I have, and I'm all about this one. So this is really cool. All right, so now back to the presentation. So first step. All right, so we have 3 demos, okay, broken up into segments here. And this first demo is we're going to show you how to open up Power BI Desktop, acquire the data, and then go ahead and pull it in to your Power BI Desktop data set. All right. And let me just load that up for you guys. Here we go. Now we're telling you guys can see this. Looks like you guys can. Okay. So again, this is us opening up Power BI Desktop. And again, you have that welcome image. And I would recommend going through that. You go ahead and close that out. And I'm showing you that, hey, there's nothing here right now, okay? So no data has been brought in. This is what it looks like when we first open up Power BI Desktop. I'm going to go ahead and click on the Power Query transform data. Again, this is very similar to the Power Query you see in Excel. And Microsoft doubled down on this because they're like, hey, this works. So you'll be seeing a lot of that, especially if you're into Azure Synapse and the like. Here I'm showing you that, within Power Query, okay, we're in the Power Query editor of the Power BI Desktop. I can go through and search through all sorts of different data connections, okay? I generally use SQL. There's a lot of stuff on the web, so you can go out there and point to a website and actually bring that data in, and ODBC links. I mean, there's, as you can see, there's a lot here that you can kind of connect to, and it keeps growing. So as the new connectors come up, you'll see that. So here I'm actually using the CSV connector, and so it's telling me go ahead and pull in the data from your folder location. And as you recall, we pulled all this information from the synthetic health directory. And here I'm showing you that, within this Power Query editor, you can kind of go through all the different attributes and kind of, figure out if it looks right, if this is the data source you want, and then go ahead and pull it in. So now, fast forward here, I went ahead and pulled all the tables that I want to use for this demo and uploaded it into Power Query. And so, and here's a couple instances where I'm showing you the tables, but I want to pause it for a second. I realize this recording goes quick. Sounds like I'm speaking very fast, so I'm going to try to slow it down a bit. One thing I want to call out is I typically like to stage all the data, okay? And then kind of be that beyond reproach kind of aspect. And I would recommend that for you guys as well. And Power BI does a great job in allowing us to do that. So when you're going through there and you're building out your solution, think of it in terms of, hey, once I build this, I want to hand this off potentially, and a lot of the work that we do in Power BI is for rapid prototyping. So there's a little plug there that, a whole other webinar too on rapid prototyping. But in that kind of splinter there, you think of it as a business requirement document, right? You can take that BRD document and hand it off to your IT team, and they can go through all the steps that I'm going to show you here and follow that rather than having to read through a 80-page Word document. So I kind of broke it up, and I have a stage folder and a fact tables folder, and now I'm showing you the applied steps that I took to get to this end result. And these are the same steps that I would imagine, an IT team to do. And obviously they'd probably go through and go, why are you doing this? And they'd probably come up with better, action or steps, but at least it gives them a start, all right? And then here I'm highlighting the mQuery. So technically when you're doing your applied steps, it's actually running that mQuery logic behind the scenes, okay? Here, this is really cool. I'm going to go ahead and click on that column distribution thing, and it kind of highlights, hey, here's a quick way to kind of give you a heads up on what's available in those columns. There's another option here in a second, I believe I'm going to click. Oh, sorry, keep me on point. So this first thing here is showing you the top 1,000. You can go ahead and open it up the whole data set. Now it jumped ahead towards the column profile. And here I'm able to click on each one of these attributes and kind of see the distribution, okay? So again, kind of a nice, easy way to kind of quickly analyze the data without actually loading it into anything, okay? You've required it, you did some transformation, but we haven't loaded it yet, okay? Here, kind of walking you guys through the rest of my tables. I think another kind of point that I like to call out is I like, once I stage the data, I only reference it because then I go ahead and create my fact and dimension tables from that referenced source, okay? And that way it kind of keeps it a little cleaner and you're not trying to load the data twice, obviously. You don't want to do that into your model. It'll make your file humongous. So now that we're done with that, I'm going to go ahead and quickly jump into settings. And again, this is my prerogative. You guys might have your own, but I'll give you a hint of why I do the way I do. So the type of detection, good on you guys, love it, but no, I typically like to do that myself. Same thing with that time intelligence. Man, that thing is a beast, and it takes up a lot of memory. And I didn't really go into it too much in my video here, but we already have a dim date table, so I got that sorted, okay? You have to do this. I do this both on both the global and the current file, so you'll notice that the data load option is on both sections. Let's go ahead and just peruse that. And the last thing, this is a good one, that smart narrative. Let me pause this for just a second. So here, the preview features, this segment here, every month, I keep getting these little notices from Microsoft saying, hey, we just came up with something new. You guys can go ahead and check it out on the preview features. It hasn't been, loaded yet for massive distribution, but this is where I like to go and check out the new things. And they have the little learn more, as you can see there. But the smart narrative visual, actually, I think that came live like last month or something for the Microsoft API. And we'll have a little snippet on that too as well. Again, it's kind of just came out, and they're kind of trailing behind like the Tableaus of the world. But it's it's there, it's free, so it's kind of cool. All right, so now we're done with all that. And let's close and apply this. So clicking on that button, it finally allows me, and basically it's hinting, Power BI saying, hey, do you want to apply the changes? Yes, I do, and it's going through and loading it. Everything is resets, and now we have our base tables. So finally, we have acquired the data from those CSV files and loaded them into this Power BI desktop file. Okay, I haven't even saved it yet. It's still unnamed, but I'm going through and just kind of showing you guys, through the data view, we can kind of see the different tables and all the data that we've brought in. Okay. And this is also the model view, and I'll show you more of that in the next demo. But here I just want to kind of show you that, hey, Power BI just dropped all the tables into this environment, and now it's up to us to go ahead and do the relationships. Okay, and that's part of the next demo. All right. So let me go ahead and stop that and go back to our slide deck. So just to recap, okay, we pulled the data from the synthetic data repository, right? And there's a link there, and we'll provide that at the end in our email and on the YouTube site. We acquired the data using the connectors that are available. There's a lot of them. I just use CSV, but just anything under the sun for the most part. Once you've acquired that data, you're going to want to transform it and build out your fact and dimension tables. If you haven't, definitely look into those, how they're defined, but that is the best way to kind of utilize all the best from Power BI. One thing that you want to kind of keep in mind is that Power BI is a model-based tool. So if you want to use it to its utmost, you want to think about it from a modeling perspective. Fact and dimension tables and their relationships. Tableau and these other visualization tools, they are strictly a reporting tool, not a model-based tool. So keep that in mind. Those two different sets. Okay, so how are we looking on time there, but Albert? I think we're like 19 minutes into this.
Yeah, time-wise, we're looking good for court.
Yeah, all right. I think that those videos are keeping me on point. Hopefully I won't pause. This one's a meatier one, okay? So now we're going to go ahead and walk through how we take the data we brought in and, how we're going to map all of those tables and relationships and then actually build out some DAX and create a report page. All right, so again, kind of showing you, this is kind of where we put the cake and the ingredients in the oven, and then all of a sudden we have another cake that came out of it. So we're at that point now where I'm bringing the cake out of the oven, and I'm just kind of referring to, let me pause this for a second. I'm walking you through the minute we brought in all the data and those tables. Now we're going to go ahead and start with that date table, okay? And using Power BI, you can go ahead and configure the different attributes and the properties. And this is just showcasing those steps right now. So the first thing you want to do, not using time series, that little checkbox on the properties that I neglected to enable, I'm doing it here. So I'm going ahead and mark this as a date table. And I'm showing you the settings that I went ahead and configured. And of course here, there's one field in there, and it's date that I want to use as my. It's got some cool stuff here, but definitely, that's the clincher. You want to have one dim date table, and you want to have it configured as a date, okay? So now I'll jump ahead, and I'll go ahead and open our fact table. And Power BI does a quick kind of dirty, hey, this looks like a number. We'll go ahead and summarize it for you. So you see the little summarization icon. And I'm just going to drag it in there and show you what it looks like. Okay, so it automatically came out, and it looks like the total cost of $6 million. And, in that scenario, I've already kind of set the currency for it. So typically when we set it would just be like a decimal format, it is set that way. And of course you can select one which you're available to. So this is kind of where we tune our file, right, or our model. So we go through all the different attributes and cherry pick which ones are date, which ones are decimal, which ones are whole numbers, and you go through that and you clean the data or your attributes. So here I am. I'm showing you again. Let's test our relationship. So I have a fact table of facts, and I have a dimension that I want to slice that fact table with. And when I do that, I notice this. Okay, so typically this is a no-bueno kind of thing. So when you see all the data and they all look the same, that's when you want to kind of pause and say, hey, something's not right here. Not only do the numbers look wrong, but my order by isn't looking legit. So everything from April to September, I get it. It's ordering by the name. So let's go ahead and fix first the dollar amounts, right? Because obviously the dollar amounts are the same across the board. There must be a missing relationship. And oh, by the way, we have a calendar date here that doesn't have a relationship. Now, obviously that's not the big indicator that you're missing something, but you definitely want to establish that relationship between your calendar date table and your fact table. And another thing, I know I'm kind of showing the properties here. These are all the things you can go ahead and set when you're in this mode. You can also do it in the other page. But I'm going to go ahead and create the relationship between the date and the encounter start date. How do I know the encounter start is a date? I can go ahead and double click on that link and you can kind of see it there. So that's just a little bit added more towards, okay, what am I dealing with? So I've established that relationship. So when I toggle back to the chart, I should see something different. And yes, I do. I see a descending list of amounts. And here I'm showing you ascending just to kind of prove it to you. But my dates are still kind of wonky. If I want to order by month year long, I'm getting this again, April to September. So this is the other portion of this tweaking of the properties of our data set. And we're going to want to what they call sort by column. So Power BI allows you to say, hey, I get it. You don't want to be alphabetic order. We can go ahead and sort by another column. And you can do it here, but I like to go into the data view and do it here because I like to be able to see all the other fields that are available. Okay. And here I'm doing, again, the sort by column, and it defaults with the month year long. And I want to go ahead and use the month year number. So if you ever wonder why your IT team is giving you these fields, it's because of this, all right? And if they don't, this is where you ask them to do that for you, okay? All right, so cool. Now we have it, January to December 2019. Good to go. That looks great. All right. So now that we've tested and managed all of our relationships, I'm going to fast forward here. I'm going to go ahead and some DAX. Okay. This is typically where, if you're not DAX certified, it's a little bit of a learning curve, but definitely worth it. Okay. So I'm taking the existing measure that we have, and I'm just going to create it again, but using DAX. Okay. And here I'm going to go ahead and use the formula calculate. And think about calculate as a sum if in Excel, but on steroids. And I didn't think of that. I read that somewhere. But again, using the calculate function, I can create a very simple sum and bring it over. And now I have, let's see here. So I added it to the table. Obviously, I need to format it so it's in currency mode. And there we go. So now I have a DAX measure. Wasn't too hard. And you can Google or Bing it and go ahead and type the word DAX and then say sum. And there's all sorts of different variations on how you create this measure depending on your needs. So now, okay, so let me pause here for a second. Okay. So now that you have this measure and it's in your fact table, that's great. And you kind of vetted it out and tested it out, that's good too as well. But in the end, if you're trying to achieve that self-service kind of model or feel, you don't want your end users to see a fact table, all right? You want to kind of cherry pick what you want them to see. And one way of doing that is by creating a measure table. And the measure table, all it is I'm creating it, is just an empty table with measures. And these measures are derived and defined based off their facts. So right now, I just did an easy create, enter new table. And Power BI is going out there saying, okay, that's weird. I'm going to create an empty table with one column that has column 1 on it. And it created at the bottom here. Let's see here on the screen. Just a second. There it is, measure table. So I'm going to go ahead and take that measure that we just created and move it into that measure table. That makes sense, right? And by doing this, I can theoretically hide the fact table And that way the end users only see the measure that I intend them to use, okay? So in a sense, it's kind of stuff. So now I have it. Now I have a cool measure table. I've got this weird column there, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a trick here. I want to hide that column 1. And I want to emphasize to everyone that this is a measure table. And I don't know why, but Power BI has a way of doing it, but it's kind of a weird end around kind of thing to do. So I looked it up, and I found that if you collapse the fields panel window, after you've hid the column and you only have one measure and you expand it up again, now you have a measure table. Even though I called it a measure table, it didn't have that cool icon. So now going forward, Power BI and even Excel, they'll see that table as your measure table. Okay? All right, so now we're done creating that measure table and we have a kind of setup. I'm going to go ahead and use quick measures. Pause it for a second. For a lot of you guys that aren't DAX certified or qualified, I was there too, and I'm still going up that route. There's still so much to learn about it. But again, it's kind of like diving into Excel and learning all those if statements and VLOOKUPs and all that kind of stuff. Definitely worth it. But what Power BI does is it knows that there's going to be that learning curve, and so it uses this new quick measure, and I kind of like it. Again, you know, it's a good way to kind of get things started. And a lot of you guys that are already DAX certified, they're like, oh, I can't believe you just showed them about that. But, you know, honestly, I think it's a great way to get things started. And it gives you an idea of, oh, that's how I'm supposed to be using those variables, those functions, okay? So let's go ahead and go through the rest of this demo. And basically, I've told Power BI, hey, let's do a quick measure on that field. Actually, let me take a step back because I want to get there. So right here, you notice I highlighted the table that has the columns and the values, the measure. And then I went to the visualization panel and clicked on that little drop-down button. That drop-down button gave me the option to do the measure, okay? Sorry that I was a little fast last time. So I clicked on the new quick measure, and now I have all of these different kind of calculations I can do using DAX, okay? And there's a lot of ones that I like to use, the running total, even that star rating, that's kind of fun to use. And again, a lot of these things are actually created or posted by other people. So people will kind of create these things. I chose the month over month because I have a cool calendar down there and I want to see the changes of month by month. I go ahead and it's asking me to provide a date field. So yes, I have a date that I here to be a date attribute. And again, they're looking for ideas, Power BI and Microsoft, and come up with a cool measure. Cool. And maybe we can get that going. All right, so now I have my month over month, and I'm slowly building out my measures, okay? So that, I think, is the end. We've gone through and created slide deck. All right. And just to do a recap, we went through and used Power BI and configured, you know, some of the properties, some of the tables. Power BI has a number of ways to kind of access that information and, you know, provide commentary, descriptions, setting, you know, those different attribute types. You do all of that within Power BI desktop, okay? As well as creating all those relationships, right? So just as you saw, we kind of mapped the date table to the fact table. You're going to want to map all your dimension tables to your fact tables, and more than one, that's even better. Then after you do that, we use DAX to kind of create that measure and how it's intended to be used. Again, the primary goal isn't just to hide the fact tables, it's to create a place for your end users to do self-serve. And you can spend a lot of time creating one measure that works for every possible scenario. And, you know, that's all well and good. But then there could also be, you know, hey, you have to be at least this tall to be able to use this report. So keep that in mind. I've spent a lot of time trying to make something fruitful and find out how to do it. All right, Albert, this is my chance. I got to pause. How are we looking on time?
Hey, Corey, we're a little bit like 5 minutes behind schedule.
Okay, thanks for the heads up. I'm going to try to get this.
Yep.
All right, so this next section is actually a little bit longer than the second one, so I'm going to have to trim this down faster. This is the important one. This is actually getting you into the service. And I'm going to cancel this one out and open up the last demo. Now, I'm going to go through just kind of a quick recap on how we took the cake out of the oven and what we have in front of us. So here we are, and magic, there's a little bit more to this. The measure table now has a little bit more measures than before. And from these measures, I only created like 5 or so, I went ahead and dummied up a bunch of these report pages below. Here I'm also showing you that, you know what, let's get rid of the fact table because we're good with the measures. And going forward, I only want the end users to see the dimensions and use the measures that I provide. All right, so here I'm doing some show and tell. Look at all the cool things I can build with just these measures and these dimensions. There's our smart narrative, just kind of a quick call out. I think this is great to kind of get things going, especially if people are new to a report page. They don't know what they're looking at. They can kind of get a sense from reading it. Again, it does take some, tweaking, and as you develop your solution and tune it, if you will, the better for it. Okay? Here's another cool, they have 2 cool little components here on this report page. One is the decomposition tree, which is what I'm showing you now. And this one here, you drop in a value and then you can analyze it and explain by those components. And it helps the users to kind of navigate and see from a visual perspective how that tree is breaking out. And once you select an item, you can actually go in, like, for example, this key influencers. Key influencers, no, muy bueno. I love this stuff. I did notice, though, that on this version of Power BI, and I know they're going to fix it, all of a sudden my top segments are gone. But don't worry. We have a workaround, and you'll see here later on during the demo. Okay, so now I'm going into the Q&A aspect, and I thought I'd throw this in here. Sorry, Albert. I know it's more stuff that we didn't want to discuss, but Microsoft or Power BI, they came up with a cool way, to extend this feature. Okay, and right now I'm kind of stumbling through trying to create a question so that way it comes back with a number. Again, you're supposed to be able to type any kind of question, but if you can't get the question you want, Power BI created this cool panel here that allows you to manage those synonyms and those attributes. So instead of seeing, GUID, you can actually say, hey, instead of saying count of GUIDs, go ahead and say count of customers or count of patients. And that way, through those synonyms, you're kind of, training the model. So that way, when the end user types in something that is specific to them and their business vocabulary, Power BI knows how to handle that. And of course, you can set it up with a number of canned questions. I only did 3 here, but just to kind of emphasize the fact that, if you're using the Q&A feature, go ahead and give them some questions so they can start, right? That's basically what that is. All right, so everything we just did and everything I just showed you was in Power BI Desktop. We haven't even touched the service yet, okay? So now I'm kind of, logging through and getting into the service, all right? So here I am typing powerbi.com, and anyone can do this. And if you haven't done it already, you can go ahead and get your trial version going. And this is your service, okay? Power BI service. And with that license, you can see here, I've got a number of workspaces, some of which have premium capacity, which is way cool. But we're not going to go into that during this webinar. Again, through those workspaces, you can create workspaces. You kind of think of it like a SharePoint site. You're just going to create them and use it to hold your information. I've jumped from my create workspace into my workspace, and I'm showing you now that it's just totally empty, nothing there. And I'm going to go ahead and take the data set or that Power BI desktop file that we have and publish it to my workspace. Everybody gets a My Workspace, and it's kind of like your own little sandbox, if you will. And you can go ahead and test things out and everything else before you publish it to your organization's workspace or your other workspace that you're using to manage that business segment. There's other steps too after you publish the workspace that you can go ahead and use the Power Apps. Here I'm kind of showing you Power BI prompted you with the link. I clicked on the link. It opened up the report page that we just published into the cloud. And voila, we are in the cloud. And so with these report pages, I'm only showing you the ones that are marked visible, right? And here I'm kind of showing you the drill through features that we've set up in the report. Again, this is where I went back to that key influencers. Remember that issue that we had with the segments? I noticed that, hey, it works here. So there's something with the Power BI desktop, and I'm sure they're going to fix it after this webinar. But here it is, and this is how it's supposed to work. Okay. So cool stuff. Again, I like that, the key influencers section. And let's see, what else do I do? Okay. And this is, again, more on that sample narrative, or this simple narrative. But here, I'm going to pin one of the tiles, and we're going to create a dashboard, okay? And the idea behind these dashboards is you want to have something where people can come to first, and then determine whether or not, oh, everything's green, I can go home. Or if in today's age, leave the office and go to the kitchen and do whatever. So right now, I'm kind of going through, and I'm pinning just samples. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and pin a tile from each one of these report pages. Now, you can have multiple data sets in this workspace, of which you can pin from all of those different report pages. The idea here is that whatever you pin to that dashboard. Now a user, when they see that dashboard, if they want to know more about that tile that you pinned, they can click on it, and it will take them to not only that report, but to that data set. And typically, you have different owners of those data sets or business segments that own those things. So it's a really good way to kind of provide a comprehensive view of your organization. So you could have finance, HR, customer relationships, all that kind of stuff built and all hosted within one workspace, and then have one dashboard that rules them all. Here I'm kind of showing you how we've actually pinned a live tile and interacting with that. And there is an example of me clicking on one of the tiles and it taking me to that report page. So again, you can kind of reorder things around and move around as such. And this is how you can design your dashboards. I mean, obviously, I'm only touching the tip of the iceberg here, but some really cool things you can do with them. And the next part of this is this little analysis. Within my data set, I have all of these options here. Now, I usually like to navigate it this way. Everything from scheduling your job to refreshing it to getting your quick insights and analyzing Excel. Now, I'm taking a break here. I wanted to show you guys how to analyze this in Excel. And what it does is it pulls out there and moves it into Excel. And you have to go through and enable it and all those connections. But once it's done, it's actually pulling that model that you built in Power BI Desktop and published to the server. And now you're pulling it down again in Excel, analyzing that data. Here I'm showing you that, now Excel is looking at your model and saying, yeah, these are your measures, and it drops it into the value section, which it should. And then here are your dimensions, and it will automatically drop them into the columns and rows, or you can use it as a filter. This is why you kind of want to make sure you put the little extra emphasis on modeling your tables in such a way that you have that business end user in mind. So I have my measures here, and I have my dimensions I want to slice those measures by. That's it. That is going to help them with that self-service kind of delivery, right? And a lot of people, they're all about Excel. And if you can provide them a solution that uses Excel to analyze that information, I mean, obviously, Microsoft knew that, so that's what they're doing it for. So again, big call out to Microsoft and Power BI and showcasing this ability to use analyze in Excel. And I think the last part of this demo here is to show you how, once we have the data set up into the service, we can go ahead and utilize the Gig Quick Insights. Okay, so remember, we went through and acquired a bunch of data. We transformed it, loaded it, created the relationships, created some DAX measures, and then went ahead and published it to our service. And once you publish it to the service, you can go ahead and click on that Quick Insights. And again, Power BI is going to go through and try to assess based off your model, what is there. And it just dumped all of this stuff in here. Now, the majority of it isn't all that great, but there are some tidbits in there that you're like, oh, I didn't know that existed, or I didn't know that was available. I also use it in a crunch to evaluate other people's Power BI desktop files. So, if they're looking to, try to assess other people's stuff, sometimes it's fun to see, hey, what kind of quick insights does their model give? Again, this is just the Q&A feature. So obviously when you pin something from the Quick Insights, it didn't come from a report page. So Microsoft and Power BI, they made it so that way when you click on that tile, it opens up the Q&A feature. That's it. So with that, I think we're done. And I can go ahead and close that up. For our demos, did I make up the time there, Albert? How are we looking?
Yeah, we're still kind of tight, Corey. So keep going.
Okay, cool.
Keep going.
So just to recap, I think I did recap this, so let's skip ahead. And I have, 15 minutes left. Ooh, is this tight? Okay, let's do this. Okay. So in this section here, and I'm going to try to keep it not too salesy, but at the end of the day, Power BI is just a tool, okay? And it's one of many steps towards implementing BI for your organization and even for your clients, okay, depending on who you guys are. We've heard a lot of challenges, everything from disparate sources and the lack of collaboration. And in the end, there's always that drive towards more transparency and better alignment towards traceability to your business objectives, right? So, in the end, as a tool, it's great, but you definitely need a plan, okay? And here, that insight, and this is the plug, we've come up with this kind of framework towards moving you into that modern BI, cloud. And it's comprised of a number of components. And again, this is more structured towards Microsoft, Azure, AWS, and like import all sorts of data sources. And we also have our Tableau representatives as well too. So we can all be there too. But again, this is Power BI. And this is a nice little view of how through our workshops and the different offerings we have, this is our way of trying to get a little bit more intimate with your data and your needs, right? So we kind of do the training and webinars, and we'll do one-on-one development with you guys to not only help you understand your space and the tools that you have at your disposal, then also understand the points better, right? And make sure you guys are still aligned to your overall objectives, okay? Once you have that base understanding, then we try to move you into that, okay, now you have this team or this rudimentary team with many hats. And there's a lot of teams out there that have the me, myself, and I kind of perspective where they're wearing so many hats and there's only one of them. So we try to help, provide a little bit more rigor around that team and provide a little more cohesiveness and collaboration, but then also be able to put the brake on and say, hey, whoa. This is what we have in our product log, and this is how we're prioritizing. And by all means, you can help prioritize this, attend our daily meetings, what have you, but we try to get you into that, follow that agile Scrum kind of methodology where every sprint you're delivering something and the business is happy. And if the business is not happy because you're not doing it fast enough, then get more resources, right? And that's how we try to help establish that for you as well. So now that you've got a good understanding of the tool and you've got a plan in place, something that shows something iterative, now you're moving up that analytic curve, right? And here, it's very important to understand where you're starting from and where you want to go. So getting a good baseline and understanding that, hey, get it, everybody wants this up here in the upper right. We are here in the bottom left. Yeah, right. So at the start, it's a lot about the crawl, walk, and run kind of thing. And a lot of times, a lot of people have already started, hopping along on one foot, and they realize they're not going to get that far, go in that direction. So we got to have to bring them back a little bit, and then, okay. And once you get that going, you start feeling that, oh wow, we're actually starting to build cool things that are relevant and that are actionable. That is the nirvana sweet spot. Okay, and at the end of the day, again, this is another plug. You can have a lot of insights in your pocket. Insights in our company name. So get over that. So you can have a lot of insights in your pocket, but if they're not actionable, they're worthless. Okay, so that's where you want to get to. Is you want to kind of help your business and your counterparts realize that, hey, I'm going to be doing all this work. It better be something that is related to the objectives that we've discussed, and they better be actionable. I mean, if it's red, I better be able to do something about it, okay? And once you've defined and you got to that nirvana suite, then you start to realize that it's just one component of a big wheel, right? And the idea here is that once you have that wheel established, you want to try to get that wheel turning, one or two iterations. And that's where, we have a number of offerings that help you not only establish that wheel, but then get it turning at least 1 or 2 revolutions, and then you're off on your own, right? Obviously, we love you if you guys kept paying us to keep making you turn that wheel, but you guys are going to want it yourself. Okay. All right. So, hey, wow. And we're looking at time. We've got 9 more minutes left. Is that right? I think.
Yep.
I pulled it out. What do you think, Albert? All right. So the next part of this deck is more of us showing off. I mean, we didn't really spend too much time on this. I should have spent a lot more time. But again, at the end of this webinar, there will be a number of links, and you can click on them, and it will take you to what we call Power BI reports published to the web. And again, this is something that, when you pay for that Power BI service, you can actually go ahead and take your reports, and even if you only have a license for 2 people, you can use that license, create and publish your reports to the Power BI service, and then go ahead and mark those reports as published to the web. What that means, though, is that anyone can see it. There is no security or anything on it. So obviously, don't be publishing stuff that is PII sensitive material, but it's a great way to kind of get your name out there and show off of what you have, right? And we went ahead and created a couple of these. So feel free to click on them. And some of these will start off at slide 3 of 4. But obviously, if you look at the other slides, you can see, our plug for Insight and some of the paid warning. This is just dummy mocked up data, buyer beware. And we have a plug for one of our offerings here. And this is the Power BI workshop. And typically it's a 2.5-day session, but with the whole COVID crisis going on, we've actually been working really well doing this online. So I can imagine me sitting there with you, and we co-developed something that not only am I helping you guys learn Power BI, and typically it's like 5 to 15 people, we're actually building something with your data. And then at the end of that webinar, that workshop, you have something you can kind of share and socialize with. So, let me just kind of go through some of these report pages. We have a little bit of time. But it works. I mean, you can go through and kind of play around and see how, how others have built things. I love Microsoft's, they have this whole gallery, and a lot of them you can download. If you reach out to those the developers, they're looking to show off too as well. But I use it to just kind of make sure that, I didn't realize that actually really was available, and how they're using it or how it's intended. Those are the kinds of things that you kind of see through those galleries. And so another kind of, let me see if I can get to it. Yeah, and so here's an example of a utilization report. So if you wanted to know how well your team is doing across the organization, you can go ahead and see, okay, I see our utilization rate and how many hours we're doing, and how many hours we're not. It does a little bit of a drill through option, so I can see the resource breakdown. Again, this is all faked up data, but it's kind of cool because you can kind of use this to kind of see what people are doing towards low hours and who they're hitting, right? The other thing too, and then we have our synthetic health demo that just finished sharing with you guys. Now, I'm going to work it out with Insight, but I think, if you guys want the Power BI desktop file, I don't think that's a big problem. In fact, I might even try to figure out some way that we can collaborate and put something even more. Again, this is just dummied up, but if I give you the file itself, and this is the file right now in its entirety, what's cool that I wasn't able to kind of do in the demo, and if we have time, I would show you, but like, for example, this one here, I right-clicked on this column, and I'm going to go ahead and say Analyze. This is really cool. I mean, I didn't realize that, Power BI could do that, and this is only, relatively new, but it's going through and trying to figure out why there was a drop between this period and the next one. Okay? And so here's the analysis. There's a 5% decrease in the count of patients. Some of these don't make quite a lot of sense, because, obviously slicing it by this dimension, that didn't make sense. Yeah, maybe there's might be something here, with the payer state. But this is interesting. This could be interesting, right? So payer city again. And then there are some of these snowbed IDs, something I wasn't aware of, but maybe I might want to look into this specific ID, what have you. But again, this is part of the just throwing something on the wall and see what sticks, right? And you can go through and kind of track and see which one's not good or not. Obviously, the weekday. A lot of by county, it looks like weekday. There's supposed to be, there's an interesting one. So patient race. Yes, this is mocked up data, so this is just something they came up with. But you can probably add to the page. Let's see how it's going to this page. Yeah. But you can go ahead and pin those, whatever one you like, and go ahead and build out your report picture from that. Okay? All right, so with that, I think we have 3 minutes left. I want to be sensitive to everybody's time here. Albert, anything else that we should be privy to? Any questions I might have floated through that anyone want to try to address? Any questions on how to get more information from us? I can definitely help with that.
Yeah, Corey, let's go through that last slide, and then I think we'll wrap it up from there.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you very much. So again, here's our, all the links. This will be emailed to you guys at the close of this webinar, and we'll make this available too on, I think, the YouTube and our parent site for Insight. Option here to download the desktop, the pro trial. So, rather than link, this is actually step-by-step on how to go ahead and use it. The data that I got from the synthetic health, definitely GitHub. And, feel free to drop an email. We're actively monitoring this. And again, here's another plug for our Power BI workshop. And we have some blog posts. You'll see yours truly out there too as well. So feel free to click on that and, kind of read through the latest in what we're doing in terms of the Power BI workshop, the Power BI health check, and the other BI consulting services that you're providing. Okay. Other than that, anything to you? I think that's it.
All right, thank you, guys. All right, and thank you, everybody, for joining today. Again, this is part of a webinar series. I know we're kind of at the top of the hour here, so we do appreciate you hanging out with us, and we hope you learned a lot. But again, this is part of a webinar series, and your Insight Microsoft commercial team actually hosts 2 webinars per month. So please reach out to your Insight account executive for the invites for those webinar series. And to learn more about Power BI and all the obviously awesome tools and features and ways you can interpret your business data, please reach out to the Power BI team at the email here on the screen that Corey has presented. And we'll make sure we reach out to you with either a jump start or some other conversations or calls, whatever works for you guys. So again, thank you for joining us on our webinar today, and we look forward to seeing you next month. And this webinar will be posted in a few days to insight.com, so you can review it and at your leisure. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful day. And thank you, Corey, and thank you, Albert.
Thanks.